The doors of the Interstellar Academy slid open with a low, mechanical hum, and every conversation inside the lecture hall died instantly. Dozens of alien species turned their heads in unison. Some towered at 3 meters tall, armored in natural plating. Others shimmered with bioluminescent skin, their eyes glowing in the dim light. A few levitated silently above their seats, their forms shifting like liquid thought. And then there was her, a human. She stepped inside without hesitation, her boots echoing softly against the polished metal floor. Compared to the others, she looked almost fragile, barely taller than the seated reptilian students, with no visible armor, no enhanced limbs, no natural weapons. Just a simple academy uniform. A murmur spread through the room. Is that a human? They're real. I thought they were classified as low-survival species. She won't last a week. At the front of the hall, Instructor Verex, an ancient war veteran with cybernetic limbs, watched her closely. His artificial eye flickered as it scanned her. "State your designation," he commanded. She stopped at the center of the room, meeting his gaze without fear. "Cadet Elena Voss. Earth." A pause. Then, quietly, Verex nodded. "You will take your place." She moved to an empty seat near the middle. As she passed, several students leaned away instinctively, not out of fear but discomfort. She didn't belong here. Not among predators. From across the room, a massive figure shifted. Karzul, the largest student in the academy. His species was known for dominating entire star systems through sheer physical superiority. Thick, dark armor covered his body, and his claws carved faint lines into the floor as he leaned forward. His eyes locked onto her. A slow, predatory grin spread across his face. "A human," he rumbled, loud enough for others to hear. "They send livestock to study now?" Laughter rippled through the hall. Elena didn't react. That alone made the laughter fade quicker than expected. Instructor Verex slammed a metallic limb against the platform. Clang. Silence. The room obeyed instantly. "Today's lesson," he began, his voice cold and precise, "is combat survivability. Across known species, resilience is defined by one factor: impact tolerance." A holographic display flickered to life, showing skeletal structures of different alien races. "No unaugmented species can survive high-force direct strikes without catastrophic damage," Verex continued. "Even the strongest among you rely on natural armor or regenerative capabilities." He paused, scanning the room. Without such advantages, survival is statistically impossible. Several students glanced toward Elena. She remained still, her eyes fixed on the display. Unbothered. Verex noticed. Interesting. Karzul leaned back in his seat, his deep voice cutting through the silence again. "Then why is she here?" More eyes turned. The question lingered. Verex didn't answer immediately. Instead, his gaze shifted between Karzul and Elena. Then he spoke. "That is something you may soon learn." The tension in the room thickened. Karzul's grin returned, wider now, filled with anticipation. To him, this wasn't a mystery. It was an opportunity, a demonstration. His gaze never left Elena as the lesson continued. Predator and prey. That was how he saw it. And by the end of the day, he would prove it. Elena, however, already knew something he didn't. She wasn't trapped in a room full of monsters. They were. The arena was built for destruction. Reinforced alloy walls, layered energy barriers, and a floor designed to absorb impacts that could shatter bone and steel alike. It was where the galaxy's strongest species proved their dominance, not through words, but through force. Today, it was full. Students gathered along the perimeter, their voices low with anticipation. The air vibrated with tension. At the center stood Instructor Verex. "Controlled sparring only," he announced, his mechanical voice echoing across the chamber. "This is a test of discipline, not annihilation. Any student who exceeds regulated force." A heavy thud interrupted him. Karzul stepped forward. The ground seemed to respond to his weight, each step deliberate, powerful. His armored form gleamed under the arena lights, and his eyes burned with something far beyond curiosity. Intent. "I challenge the human," he said. The words spread like a shock wave. Murmurs erupted instantly. "She's going to die. Is this even allowed? He'll crush her." All eyes turned to Elena. She stood near the edge of the arena, hands relaxed at her sides. No visible tension, no fear, just stillness. Verex's gaze narrowed. "Cadet Voss, you are not required to accept." "I accept." Her voice was calm, clear, and completely certain. The arena fell silent. Karzul let out a low, rumbling laugh as he stepped into the center. "Good," he said. "This will be quick." Elena walked forward to meet him. Side by side, the contrast was almost absurd. He towered over her, a living weapon bred for war. She looked like she had wandered into the wrong place. Verex raised a mechanical arm. "Begin." There was no warning, no hesitation. Karzul attacked. He moved with terrifying speed for something his size, his massive arms swinging in a brutal arc aimed directly at her head. The force behind it was enough to crush reinforced plating. Gasps erupted from the crowd. It was over. It had to be. But Elena didn't fall. The strike connected. The impact echoed like thunder. And yet, she was still standing. The entire arena froze. Karzul's grin faltered. His arm remained extended where it had struck her, but something was wrong. The resistance hadn't been what he expected. It wasn't like hitting fragile flesh. It felt like hitting something solid, unmoving. Elena slowly lifted her head. Her eyes met his, calm, focused, unshaken. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Karzul's face. "That was your first mistake," she said quietly. A ripple of unease spread through the watching students. Karzul snarled, pulling his arm back. "You think that was anything?" he growled. "I barely." He lunged again. Faster, harder, this time aiming to end it completely. But as he moved, she moved. A single step to the side. Effortless. His strike missed. Before he could react, she shifted her weight and tapped him. It didn't look like much. No dramatic wind-up. No visible strain. Just a precise, controlled motion. But the effect was immediate. Karzul's entire body lifted off the ground. The impact sent him flying across the arena, slamming into the reinforced wall with a force that made the structure groan. Cracks spread across the surface. The energy barrier flickered. Silence. Absolute silence. Karzul slid down slowly, stunned. The most feared student in the academy had just been thrown like he weighed nothing. Back in the center of the arena, Elena stood exactly where she had been, unmoved, unbothered, watching him. And now, everyone understood. He hadn't made the first move. He had made the last mistake. For a moment, no one moved. The arena, once alive with whispers and anticipation, had fallen into a suffocating silence. Even the automated systems seemed to hesitate, their usual hum reduced to a faint, uncertain tremor. Karzul had been thrown. Not pushed. Not staggered. Thrown. Across the arena. Students stared in disbelief. Some leaned forward, others recoiled, but none dared speak. Their instincts, refined through generations of survival, were screaming that something was very, very wrong. At the center of it all stood Elena Voss, still calm, still composed, as if nothing extraordinary had just happened. A low groan broke the silence. Karzul. He shifted against the cracked wall, his massive form dragging itself upright. Pieces of fractured alloy fell from behind him, clattering onto the floor. His breathing was heavier now, uneven, but his eyes burned, not with fear, with rage. "You," he growled, his voice deeper, more dangerous than before. "You dare." He didn't finish. He charged. This time there was no restraint. The ground shook beneath his steps as he launched himself forward with full force. His muscles tensed, his claws extended, and his armored plating locked into a combat state. This was no longer a sparring match. This was a hunt. The watching students felt it instantly. Predatory intent. Lethal. "Cadet Karzul, stand down." Verex's voice cut through the arena, sharp and commanding. Ignored. Karzul was already mid-attack. He swung again, faster than before, his movements no longer calculated, but overwhelming. A barrage of strikes followed, each one capable of crushing bone, tearing through flesh, reducing lesser beings to fragments. But Elena wasn't there. She moved. Not back. Not away. Through him. Each strike missed by fractions of a second. Each attack met empty space as she stepped, turned, and shifted with impossible precision. Her movements were fluid, controlled, like she wasn't reacting to him, but anticipating him, reading him. The class could barely track her. To them, she blurred. To Karzul, she vanished. "Stop moving!" he roared, his frustration breaking into fury. He swung wider, harder, abandoning form entirely. The arena floor cracked beneath his strikes, shock waves rippling outward. Still, nothing. Then, she stepped inside his reach. Too close. Karzul's eyes widened for a fraction of a second. That was all it took. Elena struck. One movement. Direct. Precise. Her fist connected with the center of his chest. The sound wasn't loud. It was sharp, controlled, but the effect was devastating. Karzul's entire body locked for an instant. Then he was launched backward again. This time, faster, harder. He hit the ground and slid across the arena floor, leaving a deep, jagged trench behind him before crashing into the far barrier. The energy field flared violently. Warning signals flickered across the arena systems. Structural stress detected. Critical impact levels exceeded. The class erupted, not in cheers, but in stunned, horrified whispers. That wasn't possible. No species moves like that. He's one of the strongest. Verex didn't speak. He watched, analyzed. His cybernetic eye flickered rapidly, scanning Elena's posture, her breathing, her stance. No visible strain. No elevated heart rate. No signs of exertion. Impossible. Across the arena, Karzul didn't rise immediately. His chest rose and fell heavily, his armored plating visibly dented where she had struck him. For the first time, he hesitated. Back in the center, Elena exhaled slowly. Not from exhaustion. From control. Her gaze remained fixed on him, unwavering. This wasn't anger. This wasn't revenge. This was something far more dangerous. Understanding. And in that moment, the truth became clear to everyone watching. This wasn't a fight between equals. It never had been. This was a demonstration. The arena's warning systems pulsed in sharp, rhythmic flashes. Critical impact threshold exceeded. A low alarm hummed beneath the silence, but no one moved to stop what was happening. No one could. Karzul remained on one knee, his massive chest rising and falling with strained breaths. The dent in his armor was unmistakable now, caved inward where Elena's strike had landed. Beneath it, something vital had been shaken, damaged. His claws dug into the arena floor as he forced himself upright again. Slowly, painfully, but his eyes still burned, not with confidence anymore, with desperation. "You," he rasped, his voice rough, unstable. "You're not normal." Elena tilted her head slightly. "No," she said calmly. "I am." That answer hit harder than any strike. A ripple of unease passed through the watching students. Some stepped back unconsciously, their instincts screaming louder than ever before. Karzul let out a guttural roar, and something changed. His armor plates shifted, locking tighter across his body. Veins of dim energy pulsed beneath the surface of his skin. His muscles expanded, pushing his frame beyond its already monstrous limits. He was overriding his own biological restrictions. A forbidden state. Verex's voice cut in instantly. "Cadet Karzul, terminate escalation. That is an order." Ignored. The ground cracked as Karzul surged forward again, faster than before, faster than anything his species should have been capable of sustaining. The air itself seemed to tear around him as he closed the distance. This wasn't a sparring match anymore. This was survival. And this time, he wasn't holding back. He swung with everything he had. The strike was catastrophic. Even the reinforced air shimmered under the force of it. But Elena didn't move away. She stepped in, inside the attack. Her hand snapped upward, redirecting his arm just enough to let the strike pass beside her. The force of it shattered part of the arena floor behind her, but she was already moving again. One step, one shift, one calculation. Her elbow drove into his side. A sharp, brutal impact. Karzul's breath vanished in an instant. Before he could recover, she followed. A strike to his leg. The joint buckled. A strike to his shoulder. The armor cracked. Every movement was precise, efficient, devastating. The class watched in frozen horror. This wasn't a battle. It was a dismantling. Karzul lashed out wildly, his attacks no longer controlled, just raw, desperate force. But it didn't matter. Every swing met empty air or was redirected, turned against him. He was stronger, faster, more powerful than before. And still, he couldn't touch her. Elena moved like she understood every motion before it happened, like his strength, his size, his rage, were irrelevant. Then she stopped, just for a second. Karzul saw it. An opening. With a roar, he gathered everything he had left and lunged forward, putting all his weight, all his power, into one final strike. If it landed, it would end everything. The arena seemed to hold its breath. And then, Elena moved. A single step. A slight turn. His attack missed. Her hand rose. And struck. Not with force, but with precision. Her fingers drove into a point just beneath his armor, perfectly placed. The effect was immediate. Karzul froze. His body locked mid-motion. The energy in his veins flickered, then died. His strength vanished. Silence fell as his massive frame collapsed forward, and hit the ground. Hard. Still. The alarms faded. No one spoke. No one moved. At the center of the arena, Elena stood over him, uninjured, unshaken, unstoppable, and in that moment, everyone understood. She hadn't been trying to win. She had been choosing how far to go, and she had just decided. This was enough. For several seconds, no one moved. Karzul lay motionless at the center of the arena, his massive body partially embedded in the fractured floor. The glow beneath his armor had faded completely, leaving only the dull sheen of damaged plating. The alarms had gone silent. The arena, once built to showcase dominance, now felt like a witness to something far more unsettling. Defeat. Absolute. Medical drones descended from above, their metallic forms humming as they scanned Karzul's condition. Thin beams of light passed over his body, analyzing fractures, internal trauma, neural disruption. Subject stabilized. One drone reported in a sterile tone. Severe structural damage. Immediate extraction required. No one reacted, because no one was looking at him anymore. All eyes were on her. Elena Voss stood exactly where she had ended it. Her posture relaxed, her breathing steady. There was no sign of triumph, no satisfaction, just quiet control. Instructor Verex stepped forward slowly, his heavy mechanical limbs echoing against the cracked floor. For the first time since the class had begun, he looked uncertain. His gaze shifted briefly to Karzul, then back to Elena. "Cadet Voss," he said carefully. "Explain." The single word carried weight. Not a command. A request. The room seemed to lean in. Elena glanced around at the gathered students, towering war species, apex predators, beings who had spent their lives believing strength was measured in size, armor, and raw force. Then she spoke. "On Earth," she began, her voice calm, "we don't have natural armor." A few students shifted. "We don't have claws. No exoskeletons. No built-in weapons." Her eyes moved briefly to Karzul. "What we have is pressure." She stepped forward slightly, the sound of her boots sharp in the silence. "Higher gravity than most civilized worlds. Unpredictable environments. Predators faster and stronger than us." The class listened. No one interrupted. "Survival wasn't optional," she continued. "We didn't evolve to dominate." A pause. "We evolved to endure." Something about the way she said it made the air feel heavier. "We learned efficiency," she said. "Precision. How to end a threat before it becomes fatal." Verex's cybernetic eye flickered as he processed every word. "You targeted structural weaknesses," he said. "Neurological disruption. Joint destabilization." Elena nodded once. "Because strength doesn't matter," she replied, "if the body can't use it." Silence followed. Heavy. Uncomfortable. The illusion had been shattered. Across the arena, The students who had laughed before now stood rigid, their instincts recalibrating in real time. The human they had dismissed as fragile had dismantled the strongest among them without injury, without effort. Verex straightened slightly. "For the record," he said, his voice regaining some of its authority, "Cadet Voss did not violate engagement protocol. All actions were within controlled parameters." A ripple of disbelief passed through the crowd. That was controlled? Elena turned away from Karzul, from the arena, from all of them. As she began to walk toward the exit, her voice came one last time, quiet but impossible to ignore. "He attacked first," she said. A pause. "I finished it." The doors slid open. She stepped through without looking back. Behind her, the silence lingered. Verex turned to the remaining students, his gaze sharper now. "Update your understanding," he said. No one spoke. "Humanity," he continued, "is not a low-survival species." His mechanical hand clenched slightly. "It is a high-adaptation one." The lesson ended there. But the truth had only just begun to sink in, because somewhere in the back of every mind present, a single realization took root. If that was a human holding back, then what, exactly, would one look like without limits?